Here we can see the template screen inside of Integromat. So for this scenario, what we're going to do is we're going to connect Gmail to SigParser to Salesforce, and we're going to use a template to get started. That's the easiest way with SigParser, is to just use a template to go ahead and get this started. Because there's a bunch of fields that are going to have to be mapped, and we have probably done 80% of the work for you, maybe 95% of the work. So what you can do here is you can click this template right here. There's another one for Google Sheets, and over time you'll start to see more of them showing up for like Pipedrive and other CRM systems. So if we click on the template, you'll see the description. You'll see parse email signatures and add/update contacts in Salesforce. And then you'll see kind of the providers that are used. What we'll do once we use this is we'll go set up each of the connections for each of the modules. So what we can do now is go ahead and click the Create New Scenario from Template button, and that will then create our new scenario. So now what we need to do is select the Gmail connection. So if you already have one set up like I do, then you'll just auto-populate in here, but if you don't, you just go ahead and click Add, and then it will prompt you through selecting the account that you want to add to your Integromat workflow. Then we will pick the folder. So most often you'll choose inbox or all of the important emails. If you choose inbox, you're going to get everything coming through your inbox, and then we'll use SigParser to filter out the ones that aren't really interesting to you. If you pick important, that might reduce the number of emails you have flowing through Integromat. Unfortunately, you will probably miss some emails. So I would suggest just choosing inbox for the emails you want to process. Then you could pick from now on, but right now when we're testing, we really need to have some test emails. So we'll pick the next option, which is select the first email that we're going to process. And so we'll go down here, and I actually have some fake signatures, and I'll click OK. Now on the next step, we will have to set up our SigParser connection. So the way you do this is that you'll click Add, and it may give you this prompt automatically, but you'll click Add, and then you will go to sigparser.com, log in, and on the dashboard, right when you log in, there will be an API key at the very top of the page. It's this big, confusing set of text. Just copy that set of text and paste it into here. That's how we set up the authentication between the systems. So once you have that in here, you can then fill out the rest of the fields. Now these are already populated for you, so you really should not ever have to mess with any of these values. But really what's happening is these are the values coming out of the Gmail emails. So you'll notice we've mapped in subject, email address, sender name. Down here we have these two fields. We have HTML email body. So this is the HTML content of the email if it was HTML, and then we have a plain text body. So if you had, instead of Gmail here, you had Exchange or Outlook 365 or just a regular email connector, you would need to map in the HTML content and the plain text body. We fall back, so some emails are only plain text, so if we don't get anything for HTML content, we'll just use the plain text to parse the email. And then finally we have date. So you want to make sure you pass the date in. And then we have this filter here that's between SigParser and the next step, which is this likely spam? As long as it's equal to false, we'll continue on. So we don't want to get a bunch of spam contacts being added to Salesforce or contacts that aren't real users. So really the way we kind of look at that is, does the email address have like a reply to in it, or does the email have an unsubscribe link in it, or an opt-out link, something like that. So then we don't want to add those contacts to Salesforce because they're probably not real contacts. So then we'll go ahead and click Continue. And now we're going to set up the Salesforce connection. So once this pops up, you will then pick your Salesforce connection, or you will have to create a Salesforce connection. So we'll go ahead and click Add, and then you'll go through the steps of actually adding your Salesforce connection here. And then the rest of this all looks good. We probably won't have to change any of this for your implementations. Next, it's going to ask us about this condition. We'll just click Continue because this is already set up. But basically what this is doing is there's a condition on this that says if there was no contact ID coming out of the search, it means we couldn't find a contact. In that case, because we couldn't find a contact, we want to create a contact. Now because you set up your Salesforce connection over here, it should just auto-populate that here. And then next we can see all the fields that are mapped in when we create the contacts. We map in first name, last name, mailing, street, mobile phone, phone number, title. So all of these blue ones here are coming out of SigParser. If I hover over this, you can actually see the SigParser one actually pulsing there to say, hey, look, this last name field is coming from SigParser. And we'll go ahead and click continue. And then you'll see the filter here, contact found. In this case, if we find the contact, because the contact ID coming out of the Salesforce search exists, then we want to update the contact. So you can see here that we've got our Salesforce connection set up here, and everything, because of this template, is now pre-mapped for us. So we use some logic when we set up this template to basically say we never want to overwrite a blank value into Salesforce when a value already existed in Salesforce. So we basically use this operator, an if empty operator, that says if fax number is empty, then just use business fax coming from Salesforce. So you notice here we use fax number if it has a value, but if it doesn't have a value, then let's just use the business fax that was already in Salesforce. And then the same thing for business phone. So if office phone is empty, then we're going to use business phone. But if office phone has a value, then we're going to use business phone. And then the next field here is contact ID. This is the contact ID that came out of our Salesforce search operator, which is here. You have to provide that for the update operator. And then the rest of these fields follow sort of the same pattern, where we do mailing street, mobile phone, other phone, and title. So that way it keeps your contact records in Sales up to date. So if someone changes their title or they change their phone number, then Salesforce will automatically be updated with those values. All right, so here we have our flow, and now let's go ahead and just run a test. And so our test ran, and you can actually see that it made it all the way through here. It looked at the condition logic here and actually went down this route because it found the record already in Salesforce, and then it went and did the update. So if you're curious what fields are coming out of SigParser, you can click on the little icon right here, and you can actually see the values coming out. So this was the email here. This is the HTML version. That was the Gmail email. And then you can see the output of this operator if you click the little magnifying glass. And it will show you what we were able to parse. So we were able to get a mobile phone. We were able to find an office phone. We didn't find a Twitter URL or a LinkedIn handle in this case. But if I picked a different email, we would have found those. And then we have a contacts collection here that has all the contacts that were in this email. And finally, one of the most important steps is to make sure you actually save your flow and then turn it on. So to save it, you can go ahead and click the Save button here at the bottom. That will save your scenario. And then finally, you can turn the scheduling on so that it will actually run automatically. So here I've activated it by clicking this button under Run Once. But I'm actually not going to turn it on right now, so I'm just going to click it again, and that will turn it off for now. So right now, it's not going to run on a schedule. You can change the schedule settings with this button next to here. And then, so I've already saved it, so we should be all good. Now, there's one more thing we could do. If we wanted to, we could say, let's ignore all of the emails that are coming from internal connections. So anyone at my company. So what we'll say is not internal, and we will look for the from address. So the sender email address and ends with, or does not end with, dragnettech.com. So I only want to process messages that weren't from someone internal to the company. So if it came from someone internal to the company, it probably has their signature in the email, which means it's probably a message I don't really want to process. So you can put that there and then you click OK. And now we're looking at all the contacts for messages that are not internal contacts. And so with this flow, it would not process our email. So notice how it stopped, because the email that it received was test@dragnettech.com. That's the domain we just checked for. and so therefore it didn't process it. And you can see that here. The sender was test@dragonofTech.com, and if you click on this little indicator here, it will tell you that what it tested for, this was not a good condition that it could pass. And so this was a basic overview of how to connect Gmail to SigParser to Salesforce in just a few minutes. You can see it's pretty easy. Doesn't take much technical knowledge, but you can get in there and you can start customizing things if you want to.